Welcome everyone to Hammering It Out. I'm here with Nath.
Wait, I'm live? What? You didn't tell me we were going live?
Oh shoot! Turn it back! Turn it back!
Hello, everyone. I think you probably know us by now, but I'm Anathema. I go by Nath online. I'm Foundry's project coordinator, and this is Hammering It Out, where we generally have a guest, but this week's going to be a little bit different. I suppose this month is probably the right way to say that. We're going to be running an Ask Me Anything, and we've preloaded some questions through a Reddit thread, and we'll also be taking questions from Twitch. And I'm just going to turn down my Twitch quality so that I'm not seeing myself in full HD glory, because my internet is still not great, but far improved over where it used to be.
You've been enjoying Starlink so far?
Yeah, Starlink is revolutionary, honestly. I was very skeptical of satellite internet being good at all, but I get better pings in League of Legends now than I have ever.
We got Third Floor Roars raiding with a party of 29. Thanks for joining us.
Nice. Hello, welcome Raiders, welcome Raiders.
Do we have like a bit build jingle or... Let's do some questions, right?
Yeah, the whole thing, the reason we put this together, we should probably do that. So why don't we pull one from Discord first?
All right.
First question comes from Vayer. Will there be global GM vision? When the GM can see party vision without selecting their tokens, it's extremely frustrating to constantly click to check if players see some part of the map after movement. Probably not. Cody, you got any... Have we even talked about that when it comes to, like, developing for Canvas? I don't think we have, right? Like, I think it's kind of more intuitive for the GM to be able to see everything, but maybe like a shared, combined fog of war could be done.
Yeah, I understand the question, but at least from my perspective, I like as a GM to be able to see the whole map and be able to move things and such. And then if I want to see what the players are seeing, I can click on their token. I understand, like, if you have a whole party, that might be a little harder. You can't just click a single button to select all your party members. There's probably an in-between that could happen. Maybe like, so oftentimes when we get feedback, it's like, all right, what is the crux of the issue? Not that you can't see from your players' views, but it's hard to select all your party. Maybe we need a button, that allows you to just quickly select all your party members at once, and move them around. Maybe that's a good module or macro.
Could be a nice hotkey ad for the keybinds.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll also say that normally when we get a question about Fog of War and sharing it, it's about providing players with a unified vision, like all of the tokens see the same shared Fog of War texture, which is something that I've wanted to run for my games. Maybe I'll bully Atropos during one of our dev meetings.
We got our first question from Twitch. If you would like to ask us a question, if you'd like to ask a question and you are watching along live, feel free to drop a question, put just question in front of it, and so we can usually find it in chat. This whole stream is essentially one big, we're answering whatever the community wants. CCJMK says, I can hear your keyboard loud and clear. I'm sorry, I'm streaming today because Matt is out. And so unlike normally Discord, does a great job of taking out my keyboard sounds, but right now it's raw mic audio. It's hard for me to turn it on and off. I actually have a mute button right there. I'll try to remember that. It is a Razer keyboard. I really like the quality. It's one of their Black Widows. It's metal. I like it a lot, but their software is kind of bad, and the audio likes to, like, if you turn it one notch on the audio knob, it likes to jump 5 notches. I don't know how they so consistently ruin high quality products with low quality software. Usually it's the other way around, but whatever.
Yeah, I'm in a similar boat. I don't have a Razer keyboard, but I'm running a Corsair. I don't know, something with cherry keys. Um, the the volume on it, the hardware, fantastic. The RGB is great, but the like media controls, I don't know what they did, but the volume knob does the same thing where it just shoots for the moon if you touch it at all.
I did recently try out a tip where the contact cleaner solution can help with that, and it's the software will still bug, but at least the hardware sends more reliable signals now. I don't know. Let's just cycle through all of them. And the first Reddit question I see is from LPO Tablex. I know technologies and frameworks change all the time, and so it's really hard, but do you plan on making it so the API base doesn't change at some point, or is that just wishful thinking? What I mean is that having switching versions not affect the way modules work except in niche scenarios. Naf?
Um, so my gut instinct on this one is to be a little bit rude, but I'm not gonna. It's a fair question, I guess. Coming from some other virtual tabletops, there's a lot more limited in API. They have something that they've kind of locked down, and developers are sandboxed into this very limited amount of framework that they can use. We don't want to do that. We'd much rather have, I guess, everything that the software can do available for community developers to work with. By exposing a full JavaScript API, we've seen some fantastic stuff come out of community developers. That being said, there are parts of the software that aren't in scope for modification. Not that it stops some. Sorry, say again.
The server, for one.
The server. Not that it stops some community developers from trying. We've recently had to have conversations where we kind of express that we have an API for a reason, and we'd prefer people not try and modify the actual server code that is obscured and not publicly available. But there's a division in our API between public and private functions. Cody, you want to tell folks about it? We've been really trying to drive this home for community developers over the last couple of version updates.
Yeah, so in a traditional software setup, you might have an external API you hit via HTTP, or you might have an SDK you integrate with, and those always provide these are the methods you can integrate with if you're a modder. Foundry is not like that. Foundry, you can go past the things we say that you should access to the things we don't say you should access. That's our private API. That's our event handlers internally. That's our internal stacks of what's going on. And managing those things carefully is important, and a module accessing those things can often introduce bugs that cause side effects way downstream that you don't ever anticipate or realize. We can't stop people from doing this, but we are working towards clarifying what's public and what's private and encouraging developers to use the public API. If you use the private API, you're more likely to cause an issue somewhere, or you're more likely to be impacted by us changing things. We don't really make any effort to not rework or refactor how those internal methods work, because they're meant for us, not for you. on the flip side, we're putting more effort into our public API and working to better share what changes are happening. We go out of our way to try to find modules that might be impacted by those changes. We're working on documentation to better clarify how those work, and if possible, we add a way that if we do have to break something in the API, we not only write that up, but we try to add a way so that like it doesn't break right away. There's a migration path and there's clear rules on how to do it. So we are trying to minimize impact over time if you stick to the public API. Private, sorry.
Yeah. I'll also just add that I'm not sure it's so much we can't stop people from using the private API. I mean, we could if we really wanted to. But at the same time, we also don't really want to. We want our community developers to feel like they can modify any client-side part of the software that they want, but you will experience more breaks from using the private API.
There are definitely things you can only do by using the private APIs, and if you are hitting issues where that's the case, reach out to us and let us know, and we'll see what we can do to make sure that's a public thing in the future.
Yeah, and we've just completed our prototyping phase for V9, and we're moving into the API development phase. And we really want to drive home to the community developers that now's the time. If you have stuff that you're leaning heavily on the private API for, there's probably ways we can make some of those functions available in a more coherent way, in a less hacky way.
Why don't you take the next Discord question then as we cycle around?
Have we taken one from Twitch? Yeah, we took the keyboard one from Twitch. All right, so next up we have Ostroporus with, have you been thinking of implementing a 3D mode for the map? It depends what you mean by 3D mode. If you mean full 3D kind of thing, where like Tailspire, like that kind of stuff, no. That's not on our roadmap. It's not something we're considering. I won't say it's completely outside the engine because Pixie can be used for 3D, but it's not really the aesthetic I think we're going for.
If you are interested, isometric mode exists and I think works well. I know some people run the campaigns in it, but it does kind of completely rewrite how a lot of Foundry works. And that's a choice you make, and that's why modules are cool. It lets you make that choice for a specific campaign, but I don't think it's the right choice for all things by default.
I feel like I bring it up almost every stream that I'm on, but one of the earliest issues that I opened on the Foundry GitLab before I was actually staff, I think it was even in the first month that I was using Foundry Virtual Tabletop, I opened a GitLab issue for support isometric mode, with intent that, it shouldn't be hard. Just, you just change the grid, right? You just turn the grid a certain amount and you skew it. It's just like really simple math. It's math I can do, so therefore it has to be easy, right? And then I think 3 months later I had been hired for a couple of months, and I got to watch Atropos work on, I think it was a token resizing issue where tokens, when moved, would change size. And it required him to make changes on 4 or 5 different sections of the code related to layers just to make sure that the same logic was being applied to all of them. And it was like this massive headache, and I was like, oh, so it's not just simple math. Did I cut out in the middle here?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, And the end result is we definitely have isometric on the roadmap. We don't have 3D on the roadmap, but it's one of those features that, while cool, is something that will require a lot more work than people might expect.
All right, let's take a Twitch question then. Zoggy asks, is there any update for the /stream page plan? There's a lot of small fixes that can make it a lot better for us streamers. I also stream. I understand, that there's a lot that you can do with streaming and a lot of cool stream setups. This /stream page was already like kind of a hidden feature of Foundry. It's not widely advertised. I think it was just kind of added as like a temporary stopgap that hasn't been revisited really. There are several modules out there that modify that page. Some add entire, character readouts. Others, modify what info is displayed there or not. It's as with a lot of things. Like, yes, there's probably at some point we will likely make updates to that. What those updates are, don't know. We haven't scoped any, for V9. But for your particular stream, you will likely have particular needs for what you want done, and modules generally better solve that than core does, just because there's so many ways that you might want to present that information.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add to that. That's pretty consistent, and generally as an attendee to streams rather than someone who does stream, my opinion on this is pretty non-valid.
A subreddit question, German Drew Boat. When is Demon Queen Awakens going to be released?
Well, soon.
TM.
Soon. We don't have a firm date nailed down just yet. There's still a little bit of work. We want to provide a really polished product. Can't commit to any dates, but look forward to it. I think I can probably. I think it's safe to say within the next month it'll be available.
I know that we had an interesting discussion about that. I don't know if we want to talk about that here. We started building on V9.
Yeah, I mean we can kind of share that. Basically, Demon Queen Awakens was built in V9 because it was originally run in V9. The live stream was in the middle of the V9 development prototype period for V9 P1. So it has a lot of functions that are built around stuff that's only available in V9, and at the moment it's still a prototype, so we don't really want to release a product that requires users to install a prototype version in order to get it to work. It's a bit inconvenient, but that's also where the best quality of V content is. So we've got to walk this fine line of backporting a V8 version, which we hope won't make the quality suffer too much, but certainly we're working internally to provide the best product we can with regard to Demon Queen. It's honestly, I'm kind of amazed at the work that Atropos and Cobalt have put into it. It's something else. What was run on the stream was good. This has a layer of polish that I haven't seen in many modules for Foundry.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be kind of a... I don't want to like toot our own horn, right? I'm not involved in producing this, so I feel like I can toot it a little. Because it was built for VTT, because it was from the very start built for Foundry, envisioned for Foundry, by the Foundry creator for using Foundry features. The lighting, the visuals, the journals, the sound effects, what you can do. Like, there's an opening scene where, like, you know, the journal talks about, you know, describing the room, and you can, you know, there's a sound effect cue, and there's this stone slab opening up sound effect, and it's like, it's a simple effect, but it adds to the ambiance and makes a really cool effect. And yeah, playing sounds isn't that hard, but most adventures are written for paper and such. They are not going to send you an MP3 files and such. So the fact we have that is cool. And in fact, right now, the background music is some of our music from Music D20 that we've gotten permission to use for Demon Queen's Awaken. So there's your slight, you know, spoiler or teaser.
Teaser. Let's go with teaser.
Teaser.
Just don't let your players watch the live stream.
Right, that was a Twitch. That was a Reddit question. I think we're back to Twitch.
No, Discord.
Discord's
up. This one gets asked a lot, but it probably is just going to be one we're going to have to address frequently. Hobo Lira. Let's go with Hobo Lira. Has the team had any talks with Wizards about official module support, or have they shown interest? Foundry already has some reputable names releasing, so hopefully that has granted a level of legitimacy. I'd like to think that we're very legitimate, but we don't really have anything to disclose. Don't read into that. On an official level, there's no discussions that we can talk about. There's nothing to share. Trust me, when we have something that we can share, you'll hear it. It won't be quiet.
I promise that you won't suddenly catch us off guard, or you'd be like, oh, actually, we totally forgot. You know, we do have news to share. Thanks for asking. You'll know.
There definitely won't be a case where someone's like, hey, do you have anything to share about Wizards of the Coast? And we look at each other and go, did you forget the announcement?
Oh, darn.
I don't even play, like, I play in a D&D 5e campaign, but I'm not a D20 fan, and I have strong opinions about D&D. While partnering with Wizards of the Coast would be awesome, and would certainly have a major positive effect, I don't think it's something that I consider necessary for the future of Foundry's success. I mean, we have a lot of game systems that we support. Having a JavaScript API that's open and the UI being HTML and CSS makes it possible for even complete rubes like me to bring their own game system into Foundry.
And if we have time, we'll even show off a bit of that work.
Yeah, maybe a bit later we can show how far I've gotten so far.
We are getting a good stream of people coming in asking questions. So, and we also just got someone subscribing. So thanks, Sana.
Yes, thank you, Sana Renomi.
I keep missing Outro's 2 cents in the comments. But that's okay. Hype train.
I think it's absolutely fine for him to make comments in Twitch chat. It adds a level of perspective.
FP2AV asks, will Foundry ever store user settings server side rather than client side? It's a bother when a player joins from a different device and has to reconfigure everything. We store world settings across, so that's synced between devices, but client settings are specifically on that client. I know for a lot of modules that's annoying, but for other modules it's actually a benefit. For instance, modules such as custom CSS or modules, other modules that do UI and UX, you might want different rules and different settings for your laptop versus, say, your desktop, or for, you might want to set different performance settings, you might want to set different view settings. Is there probably room for a middle ground of like a synced client, a player setting instead of a client setting? Probably, but nothing on the roadmap.
Yeah, I think it might be more of an internal roadmap than an external one, but it's definitely been something that's been in consideration, to add like a user scope. It's been talked about. I don't think we've committed to it, but there are definitely settings that would benefit from having access to a user scope, which would be stored on a user per world instead of, stored in session data, that kind of thing.
That said, module developers can already store per user flag data rather than a settings, so they do have options available to them. It just maybe doesn't come with the same ease of use of a setting.
For sure, for sure. And going to Reddit, as an extension of your Free Code Fridays, if you each had a free month to code and produce any feature of your choice for the software, what would it be and why? Cody?
So first of all, for those who haven't heard, we have started a initiative of Free Code Fridays. It's not every Friday, it's like once a month. It's where we set aside all of our infinite bundle of prioritizations, where everything is the most important thing, vying for the top, and just go work on something that like maybe we've wanted to do but hasn't been high priority, or maybe that we want to do but isn't even necessarily part of the core software. We did this for the very last time last month. It's coming up again this month. During that time, I worked on Tutorial World. Nath, you worked on... I forget. Did you work on something that day?
I did. While you coder types were doing your really advanced coding stuff, and Atro added the scrolling combat text, and you did your Tutorial World, and Kim did that canvas thing with the gridless base contact highlighting. I made my first official merge request to the Foundry VTT software.
Right.
And it was a very simple CSS change to the setup menu to add a underlining when you have a particular tab selected. And that took me 2 hours.
Well, how long did it take to do merge requests?
Not going to talk about it.
What would I do with given a whole month of being able to do whatever I wanted? Probably like a week of like finding really small things that have always like slightly bothered me or others, and just like, knocking them out. Just like, man, this really isn't worth doing right now, but like, I'm gonna do it. And then I'd probably spend the rest of the time trying to shove in a way to tie your license login with who you are in the world. And I know that sounds very boring, but it does have some cool ideas for authenticating that you are you, and that means modules that access content in the cloud can know that you're you and give you access to your Patreon stuff or to your purchases right in world.
So like kind of like a single sign-on kind of thing, right?
Yeah. I would love to enable more people to have better access to their content, which is a very... God, I'm boring, aren't I?
If I had a full month, I'd probably spend the first week trying to figure out how the sidebar actually works as opposed to the hacky approaches I've been doing to inject stuff in them. And then I'd probably add I'd probably implement the drag and drop support for playlists.
Jumping ahead real quick, Wicked Persimmon is asking what your dog name is, Nath.
Blossom.
And you just recently adopted Blossom, right?
Yes, she is a rescue dog from a rescue in California. They transported her up to us. They were a little bit less disclosing than we would have liked about how aggressive she is with other animals. But she is otherwise a very good girl, and she's super polite to humans, and she has her issues, but we love her pretty much unconditionally.
That's good. I also have just adopted a dog myself. I think he'll come swing by to say hi in a minute here. I'm also in a new house if people haven't noticed, so lots have changed. I live actually right by where D&D was created, Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. I only found that out after the fact. Yeah, so that's Oh, and you nearly had your house burned down. How was that?
Yeah, it's been kind of a wild couple of months. Obviously, I wasn't here during the last hammering it out because we were actually under active evacuation alert for the second largest wildfire in BC history. That was interesting. I've never been under an evacuation alert before. It was very stressful. Having to pack pretty much everything we own and have the car loaded and ready to go for a moment's notice for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I don't know. It felt like forever.
It was a long time.
Was definitely not pleasant. It made working extremely difficult. Sleeping was a thing that I didn't do. But it's all over now for this year.
And you moved how many alpacas in the course of that?
I lost count. We shifted our entire alpaca herd to a friend's farm where they could be cared for and were safely out of potential evacuation area. And we only recently got them back. The fire has only officially been under control for like a week and a half. It has been a stressful time. I believe I can't confirm, but I believe that Cody may have gone to get a puppy.
Oh, you can't halt. Let's get you some natural light there, bud. This is Barrett.
We really need to get you some like tripod lights or something. Get you like some front on.
Yeah. He's got big old paws. He is a Saint Shepherd, which is a Saint Bernard and German Shepherd mix. He's going to be quite big when he's older, but right now he is only 8 weeks old.
2 days apart, Cody messaged me with, "So I'm thinking about getting a puppy," and then a picture of what looks like a bear. This is a bear. This is not a dog. Cody,
yeah.
You got a bear.
And he has bear in his name. It's not spelled that way, but it sounds that way. We named him after the Final Fantasy VII remake character, Barrett.
Not the original Final
not the
original.
No, please.
The remake.
Please, the remake. Let's not the remake intergrade though. That's completely different character. All right, let's get you back to where you sleep.
And in the meantime, I will dart over to Reddit. Kind of went a little bit off the rails there. By the way, I apologize if any of you can hear the screaming in the background. I assure you.
You mean
no
that wasn't
one's being
Demon
murdered.
Queen's Awaken ambient noises? Because I
Yeah,
sure
no.
would have sold it as that.
I'm not having someone murdered in my house. I have an African gray parrot. He likes to scream. Big fan of horror movies. That bird. Right. So, just real quick, Vex. No, we're sliding between Discord, Twitch chat, and Reddit for question selection, so everyone gets their share. Right. Have you guys considered a Steam release once you're out of prototype phase? No. Well, that's a lie. We've considered it and decided not to. There's a lot of reasons why. There's a lot of reasons why Foundry Virtual Tabletop is not a good candidate for a Steam release. Most of the time when someone's asking about a Steam release, what they're really asking is there going to be a version... Sorry, is there going to be a regionally priced version of the software? And we are always looking for the best way we can provide regional pricing, but it's a complex problem, and while Steam would solve that problem, it also poses other problems that really wouldn't work for us. So no, I'm afraid we will not be coming to Steam anytime soon, probably ever. It's just not on our agenda. Sorry.
But will we get our animals added to Foundry as tokens?
Maybe?
Maybe.
Maybe. Just a real quick one from Twitch chat. How do you pronounce Nath? You pronounce it like that. Nath. Like math, but with an N.
I hate math.
It's just a shortened form of anathema, which is my Discord handle. Circling back to Discord, since I'm talking about Discord, Vex, one of our community helpers, asks, what has been your personally most favorite feature to work on or see implemented in Foundry? Feature in this case can mean anything from a simple button that rolls a die to the entire vision system. Cody?
I liked working on the support button that we added in V9P2. Again, boring. But it lets you hit a button, it tells you where you can go to get support, and it gives you a little report that you can post in Discord that are very helpful community helpers and moderators can look at to try to figure out what's going on. The reason I liked working on this is it was kind of a loose idea at first, like how do we better support these people who are being so kind as to help out others for free? They're volunteering their time to do this. How can we support them? They deserve that. And I got a chance to go out and talk to them and ask them what would help you and what info do you need and what's useful to you, and turn that into something that looks pretty okay and works pretty well and generates something that helps them out, and maybe add a few more tweaks that unexpected surprises, and turn it into something that hopefully will make their day a little easier when they do that kind of thing. I like working with people to better fulfill their needs.
My favorite feature. It's not one I worked on. I'm not a programmer. I'm just someone who takes other people's code, tries to understand it, and then fails. My favorite feature to see added. I don't know, card support's pretty great. Actually seeing an official implementation of something that I work to hack around and make work myself is pretty cool. Favorite actual feature? Foundry's ability to provide soundscapes to players. Other virtual tabletops have it, I know, but it's one that I have used and abused my players with so much, and it really changes. It really makes it possible to deliver the experience I want to deliver as a GM.
There was about a month after I first got Foundry that anytime there was any water on a map, you would hear the rushing sound of a river if you got too near it. My players had to tell me, please stop, it's too loud.
Yeah, running a proper soundscape is something that does take an amount of crafting. It certainly takes more effort than just throwing a sound file on the map. If you want to deliver a really immersive experience, you need layers of sounds. You need to really work on the ambience. I think we're into Twitch. You want to grab a Twitch question?
Yeah, well, we have a lot of them. Let me scroll to the people who are currently asking, and maybe we can work our way back. No, those are jokes. Those are dog comments. Are there virtual conventions where we can run games in the future? Asked by Hawk and Sparrow. I mean, nothing's stopping you from doing that already. Last year, I actually ran Foundry for a bunch of people at Gen Con online. You can just sign up and, for an online session and be like, I'm running my game in Foundry, and that's how people connect. To answer a different question that maybe you meant to ask, will there be a Foundry online convention in the future? Not anytime soon, not if Nath can stop it. I would personally like to see us to do it one day, but we have a fairly large community, but we probably need to grow by another magnitude to really get like the amount of people in the same space. I guess that's for physical though. Online, we might be able to already. It's a ton of planning. It's a ton of work, so it's not anything we're considering right now. I think we'd have to grow our team more than anything else to start facilitating that. But it would be fun.
Yeah, it may surprise no one, a very large introvert. I am not the type of person that could be around a lot of people for a long period of time. And quite honestly, if we were to have a convention, like a full needs a convention center kind of convention, my liver wouldn't be able to handle it.
You did volunteer for this stream thing, though.
It's different when there's screens. No people in the room, just a screen and an audience. I'm okay with that.
That's true. I definitely have, an in-person, fear of crowds and, a fear of speaking in front of crowds. But on a stream, it's just, so I'm talking to Nath and people are happening to be following along. And if I stare that there's 75 people right now listening to what I say, then it kicks in a little bit.
I had a time in my life where I was really, really upset by the idea of speaking in front of large audiences or whatever. Then I got the opportunity to act as a corporate facilitator for a customer service industry company. And that was enlightening in that I discovered I'm actually really comfortable in front of an audience of any size. So that led to a job in not-for-profit public speaking and advocacy work. So it's not so much an issue with not being able to speak in front of crowds or not being able to deal with being a public speaking scenario. it's more. I find it incredibly draining if there's more than 6 people in the room. It just takes a lot out of me to be on in that situation. So if it's a limited time and it's like, okay, you're going to get up and talk in front of 5,000 people for an hour, cool, not a problem. If it's you're going to spend the next 2 days immersed in crowds, hard pass, I'm out.
Dying Noob has asked, what's the funniest bug in Foundry you've seen and squashed?
Funniest bug in Foundry. That is a hard question. I've seen some pretty ludicrous bugs. Funniest one, I think I'm going to go with if you, as a developer, as a community developer, if you mislabel the positioning attributes in your CSS, like if you mark it as absolute in the wrong area when you're adding a button or something, you can actually push the whole canvas to the left, right, up, down, whatever, and completely jar the entire UI. And I have hit this on occasion, and I always laugh when it happens. It's not so much a bug as me screwing up, but it does provide some humor.
Funniest bug that we actually haven't fully squashed this one, but sometimes if you load Foundry and quickly, especially on a slow connection, quickly click between sidebar tabs, you can get the sidebar tabs to display on top of each other. I actually really like this layout and hope that we support it one day. It's mostly solved, but we still have a couple edge cases where it happens. Funniest bug that I did squash was actually my own thing. Vino is a module I wrote, Nath uses in his games. It displays images of characters and low text underneath, kind of like a visual novel, to, better bring that spoken text on game. I had a, whole map set up and was running with the beta version. I always test my own stuff in live games, and it was working great. They were talking to the bartender, things like that. Then they meet this bigger, burlier like NPC that's supposed to be the boss, and he's all gruff. And when his talk comes up on speech, he's still this scrawny bartender chick that they were talking to, because I had loaded the images wrong and it was referencing the wrong tokens. So I had to just keep going with it. So this whole serious, hidden in the back of the bar under rough and cut dealing was all done with this female bartender who looked nothing like the character is supposed to represent, who wasn't even human. But still was a fine game.
Just roll with it. Sometimes you just gotta roll with it.
All right, we got lots more Twitch questions.
We should probably... Where was that one from? Was that Reddit or
that
Discord?
Was from Discord. I think we've asked all of the Reddit ones.
Steam release. Yeah, it looks like we may be clear. I'll refresh it real quick, but go ahead and pull one from Twitch while I do.
Oni TV asks, any question for being able to rotate multiple tokens on a shared pivot point? I want
like performing a wheel in a strategy game where all the units, you set a pivot point to a corner and have the units turn. Was the
short answer
sorry?
no?
My internet kind of cut out at the beginning of that question. Was that, are we planning to implement it, or?
Yeah.
No plans. There's no reason a module couldn't do it. I feel like it would... I don't know if it's really something that needs to be core. It feels kind of module country to me. I have had an idea for a module I internally in my head call grouper for a while, which would just let you hotkey, like, for those of you who are RTS fans, Control 1 to apply a uh, group selection, and then when you press 1, it would let you select that group of tokens. Uh, Maybe I'll look into, if I ever get to the point where I'm developing that, maybe I'll look into setting pivot points for rotation. I feel like it can't be crazy hard to do. It's probably just shifting the center point.
Just like isometric,
Just
right?
just
Yeah, it's just math, right? Come on, how hard can it be?
yeah, really.
That takes us to the next question in Discord, actually, and one we get a lot. How likely is it for useful modules to be included in core? What I'm thinking of is chat images, which renders images via URL in the chat log, other quality of life type modules. In general, we talk about it a fair bit. I think it's a fair, like, Nath, what is, in your mind, module territory versus core territory?
So we often get questions like, when is X module going to be core, or have you guys considered adding particular module to core? The hard line for me is, if the module provides something that is uniformly a benefit for all users, something that is system agnostic and would straight up provide an unquestionable feature add to the core software, it's something we should probably consider adding as a core function. If the module is instead system specific or only benefits a small percentage of users, it should not be core. So something like pings. Pings is a good example. Ability to provide a way for users to ping the canvas for where they're currently, trying to interact with something. That's something that has been on our radar for a while for absorption into core. It's not been a priority because honestly the module does a great job. So it doesn't feel like something that needs to be absorbed immediately, but it is something that we should probably consider in the future. Something like system automation modules, MIDI, QOL, better roles, that's never going to be core. Those are way too specific, and there is such a divisive discussion around automation and whether or not the software should be automated that we're never going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. That's not something that would be a core implementation. I can't imagine as a GM if I installed Foundry VTT and installed a game system and it forced a pile of automation into my usage of that system. I can't imagine what that would feel like. I'd probably drop the software. I'm a very low automation kind of guy. So we always want to make sure that when we're making these decisions for what should be absorbed, that we're making decisions with very careful thought towards the kind of stuff we're forcing on the users. We don't ever want to make decisions about how your table should be run and prevent you from modifying that with modules. So it's a very difficult line to walk, but we do it very conscientiously. With that being said, we do add features from modules to the core software fairly frequently, and I'm often on the lookout for modules that would be good candidates. When we do so, we usually reach out to the module developer responsible and kind of communicate with them to make sure that they're okay with us effectively making their module no longer necessary. Because, quite honestly, it can be a good thing. It can be something that they look at positively, or it could be viewed as like a company coming in and pushing around the little community developer, and we don't ever want to do that. We value our development community very highly, and it's important to us to keep that relationship positive.
I definitely think there are some modules that some people will be like, I don't understand why this isn't core. And, the one I can think of is Dice So Nice. People love 3D dice. It's the most installed module and has been for a long time. But to make that core would mean to tie any updates or feature add-ons of that to our release schedule, which is by necessity a lot slower and a lot more pace than any module would otherwise, have to do. It would mean that, we would have to maintain that code. We would have to line it up with our releases. We would have to write that documentation, and we would deny, JDW and his team the ability to work on that because we can't just give them access to a little bit of our code. It's either all or nothing. So we'd have to have a conversation about, can they, get access to all the code just to keep working on that one feature, etc. And then if they want to, they run a store, Worldsmith. If they want to roll out a new feature to enable new dice, now they have to wait for us to release the next stable. It could be like 6 months before you get a new stable version of Dice So Nice if it's core. Having it as a module means they control it under their, own timelines, under their own prioritization, and they can make money off of that and plan around their own business plan. And I do love Dice So Nice. I run it in all my games. I buy all their Rollsmith sites if I can. But I think it should not be core because they're doing such a good job with it, and we would only slow them down by putting it under our management.
Conversely, I don't install Dice So Nice on any of my servers. I'm probably an odd man out on that. I love that it exists. JDW does some fantastic work with it, but my game system doesn't use dice. And since my game system doesn't use dice, there is literally no point in me installing that. If the core software had it, I wouldn't be terribly put out by it, but I know that there are some GMs out there that find the 3D dice rolling on the screen distracting. And it should be an option.
And
I like that it's an option.
Some performance impacts to every file we add. Every bit of code we write is slowly growing Foundry and making that initial connection that much slower. And Dice So Nice is very performant. They've spent a lot of time making it that way, but at the end of the day is still ultimately loading a good chunk of files and a good chunk of models to display those 3D dice. If you aren't going to roll 3D dice, you don't need to load at all. So yeah, it is always a hard question about what should be core, what should be a module or not. But I personally am more of the opinion of why not a module? A module gives you more choice. It gives you just as much say in most cases. It lets you can do almost anything you can in core in a module, and now you have more say about if you want it or not.
I just want to address one more point on this. DJ Dementia in Twitch chat mentioned drag ruler is kind of specific, but generic enough that most systems could use it. You're not wrong. Drag ruler probably could be a candidate for absorption, but I think it's one of those things. I'm a fan of drag ruler myself. I use it in my games, but I think it's something that we have kind of a specific workflow, for ruled movement versus drag movement. And having a hybrid does feel more like a module option to me than it does having it in core. If it hits a point where that module is no longer maintained or what have you, it might be something we'd consider adding, but honestly, I think it does a good enough job on its own that it doesn't need to be a core option.
I run a distance list system. I have no idea what this module does.
Yeah, I keep forgetting 13th Age has no measurement. What it does is it combines the drag movement with the ruled movement, so it shows you a measurement of how many squares you are dragging before you drop. It's pretty handy. I like to use it for my players because it conveys that information to them pretty quickly and easily.
If I had a movement system, I'm sure I'd like it.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I think we did have Vayer come back in Discord and ask about how do we run our games if the problem of the DM vision not being set to their players comes up. At least personally, like I have Field of Fog of War on some maps, not all of them. Some maps, like it doesn't make it, if you're walking through a forest and it's a fairly small forest, I don't really feel any need to like reveal the forest over time. It's just whatever, you have your line of sight and that's it. For a dungeon, yeah, I'll probably set Fog of War on and such just so they can see where they've been and such a little easier. And I generally, my party walks in, with someone at the head, so I'll just click on them and see what they can see if I need to check. But most of the time, it doesn't matter, I guess. Like, they see what they see, and that doesn't impact whether or not enemies are around the corner or not. It doesn't impact, I don't know. I'll click on their specific token if I think they might not be able to see an enemy and they just are they know the enemy is there based on their allies, but it's really not something I worry about too much, so I guess it doesn't come up as a concern for me.
So, I think I'd need to see more of your workflow there to really address this solidly, but in ways, I think over time, you learn to know what a token can see. Like, I can trust the Foundry engine to handle vision because I know what I've set those token vision radiuses to, and if I need to immediately see what they can see, I can click on it and do it. But to be honest, a lot of the time when I'm GMing, I'm not focused on what that token can and can't see. I trust the engine to do that for me. I don't do any manual Fog of War exploration or any of that. It's all handled by the dynamic lighting and dynamic vision.
Something I do for my stream that you could probably copy. I have a stream user, and that user has observer rights to all the PC tokens. So I load in as a GM, and I load in as that stream user in a separate window, and I'm streaming that view. So because they're not, even without selecting, they only have observer rights to the PC tokens, and so you get a unified view of all of what the PCs see in real time. I use that for the stream. I don't look at it myself, but you could probably, go in a different window and just watch that as well, if that, and then but that's two windows, so,
Another thing that you might consider is if you're using your map for a combat scene, the line of sight and vision is more important, obviously. If, as you indicate in your question, that it's exploration between fights, one thing that I started doing that really made it a little better for my players to be able to explore a non-combat scenario, I, in many situations where the players have already been on the map or something like that, or they have a map existing, like a paper map given in game, of the place they're going to explore, I will reveal the terrain using a universal light once they're in position. I'll reveal the terrain that they know about. And then it's fog of war shaded out, so they can't see tokens in there or anything, but just a quick flash of a universal light or a global light if you want it to be affected by walls. This changes in V9 P2 for the record. Um, in V9 P2, all lights are either constrained by walls or not. It's a toggle, and some provides vision or doesn't. Um, just a quick flash provides them with the dimensions they can move and explore without having to think about whether or not they're seeing all of the tokens that might be visible. I keep my tokens invisible until the players come across them anyway, so it's just a quick one click universal light shows the map, and then when they explore, they're exploring an area that they have a rough idea what the dimensions are going to be like anyway. They're not filling in the map, they're exploring in the map, if that makes sense. I hope this helps. It's always hard for me when a user expresses, major hurdles that they're experiencing in their DM workflow or GM workflow.
Let's shotgun through a couple Twitch chat questions to get caught up. Any additional payment methods to buy Foundry, like PayPal? This gets asked a lot. There's a lot of hoops and such to jump through. I don't, Nath, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're not planning on adding any additional at this time.
We recently added some more for European countries. There's a list on our FAQ of which ones got added in order to counterbalance the delays that SEPA payments can sometimes cause. But no, PayPal is not on our agenda. It's the big issue is they're a key competitor of Stripe, which means we'd have to have an entirely separate checkout workflow. We'd have to have, additional payout on each transaction going to PayPal instead of Stripe. There's a lot, not just technically involved, but financially involved in having two different payment entities, and we're still a small company. It's just not there yet. I don't think we're gonna add PayPal anytime soon. Sorry.
PPC Miranda asked, is there any plans for an LTS version? In our new versioning scheme, our stable releases are our long-term support versions. We tend to support one major version back at a point. I guess some of the long-term support versions are up to 2 years support. I don't think we would do that anytime soon. We support our stable versions, and we tend to support one major version back as well. That isn't to say you won't be able to get support on older versions. It's just we frankly don't remember.
Yeah, and we also can't expect our community helpers who are volunteers, our moderators who are volunteers, to remember what the software was like over a year ago. I feel like there's been a lot of conversation about instability related to version 8. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that this is a result of module usage. And I don't want to make it sound like I'm shitting on module developers or anything like that, because that's not the case. But if you are running any game, never mind if it's Foundry related or otherwise, but if you're running any game and you install 50 plus add-ons, it should not come as a surprise to you if things stop working during the next update. Module developers are people too. It takes them time to update stuff, and when an update to the software is released, things change, functions change, parts of the software change. I modded the hell out of Skyrim. You just have to accept that if you're playing a heavily modified game, you're going to experience increased instability as a result of those modifications. The core software itself, I will grant that 086 probably had some bugs in it that I wish we had caught before they went live. But 087, 088, 089, they're solid, they're stable. No modules, they work just fine. Even with quite a few modules, work just fine. But older modules that are out of date and failure to follow the correct procedures when updating, so that you're updating the software but not your modules, not your systems, things like that. That instability is instability that users introduce. That's not instability in the core software. And that might be a hard truth for some people. It's probably not the most tactful way I could say it, but it's not instability in the core software. And it's important for people to recognize that just because you've modified the software and it becomes unstable after an update doesn't mean the software itself is unstable.
We do have the warnings of, this module does not say it's compatible, for this version for a reason. And just because you load into the world and it loads doesn't mean there aren't issues. Those issues might only crop up after a lot of time or after a lot of data, or those issues might only happen in conjunction with other things being added. I run a lot of modules, like a lot. I run even now like 70 plus. And that was after I culled a bunch. But I've extensively made sure those modules are working well with each other, and it's very easy for me to, I'll install a module that looks cool, I'll notice new issues and performance when doing combat suddenly lags, or when I post a chat message it hangs for a second, and then I'll turn it back off, verify that it was in fact that module, and then I have to make a decision. Am I going to let that, is what it's adding worth what it's taking away? So yeah. I can run a fairly stable game.
And I'll also add that we don't ever force updates on users. Like, if your game is stable, working with the modules as you've currently configured it, and you want to keep running the software in that state, do it. There's nothing saying you have to update to the new latest version. Run your campaign the way you want. I do.
We have people still on 06.
Yeah, we admittedly very few, but we have people on, I've seen version 5 in the wild, because they have one module that they just love so much and they want to hang on to it, and it never updated, so they're going to stick with it as it is. And I mean, good for you. If you want to run that game, do it. Nobody's stopping you, and that's the whole point of this software being the way it is for you to run the table the way you want to run the table.
Matt Pat asked, what are some best practices for GitLab, either core or systems like 5e, such as commenting in an active issue, opening new issues, etc.? Nath, you want to answer that for core?
Sure. The biggest one that I'll hammer home is an etiquette one. Search. I can't beat this drum enough. Search before you post an issue to the GitLab. Search and make sure that it doesn't already exist. We also have all of the issues that have ever been opened are labeled one way or another. If you're unsure if someone has already opened the thing that you're going to ask for, click on the labels, and they're pretty intuitive. If you're asking for something for lighting, it's going to be in the lighting label. Try and make sure that no one else has already posted the thing you're asking for. As a general rule, we prefer feature request issues be posted to our feature request channel in Discord. A lot of people, I won't say a lot of people, some people might think that that's just a trash bin that no one reads. I guarantee you it does get read. We don't always open GitLab issues for the things discussed in there, because we also have an internal process for deciding this kind of stuff. When it comes to bug reports, we prefer people post them to the bug reports room, with the exception of, like, we have a fair few community developers who are established in the community and their names we know well, and when they post a bug report, it usually comes with a chunk of code that they've ripped out of foundry.js and gone, okay, here's where things went wrong, here's how to fix it please. And we love when those come in, but it's also on a level that we don't expect our average users to contribute, because that's like the I'm a developer and I know what I'm looking at here kind of bug report. For the most part, the bug reports we prefer them on Discord, because it also allows us to immediately engage with the user when we're doing reproductions and say, okay, did you try this with no modules enabled? Is there anything in the environment for your computer that might be causing this issue? That kind of thing directly, instead of a post on GitLab that might take 24 or 48 hours, sometimes a week or two before we can actually comment on or look at. Discord lets us deal with it in a much more immediate way. We prefer things through there for that reason.
When working with community places, repos, in general, remember that a lot of these people are doing it for free with their spare time. If you have a module you're using or a system you're using, it's being developed by the community. When you write it up, if you're writing a bug report, add as much information as you can, and just remember they are people. They don't really actually owe you any time. They don't owe you any support. So being polite, being helpful is more conducive to them helping you out than if I have had people just like quite literally be like, this is trash, this doesn't work how I want it, I demand you do something about it. It's like, okay, dude, I'm not doing it. You are free to fork the repo and go make whatever changes you want. And
Yeah,
even if it was like a good idea, it's like, well, I don't want to do it anymore.
There's a lot to be said for kindness in daily life, but when dealing with people for really any project, it's worthwhile taking the time to phrase your request or phrase your report in a way that doesn't come across as aggressive and hostile. I'll also point out that we occasionally get feature requests submitted on GitLab with the priority field filled in, and it's almost always 7 or higher. And it's not that that feature may or may not be a high actual priority. It's that the person submitting it thinks it's a high priority for them. Therefore, it becomes a 10 on the priority scale. Priority is, how badly does this affect the software if it hasn't been implemented? Does it make the software completely unusable that this hasn't been dealt with? A priority 10 would be like, the software doesn't open anymore. the website has been down for 48 hours. Like that's priority 10. My UI doesn't work exactly the way I want it to. I would like a button that lets me click it to make the chat tab span the entire width of the screen. That's not a priority 10 issue. I'm sorry. It's never going to be.
We do care. It's just not that priority.
Yeah, we love our community, and the features that get submitted are awesome, but
otherwise, let's see. Foundry core software. I would really say the document refactor has smoothed a lot of our workflows. Before we did the document refactor, I mean, not that it was done while I was here, but I worked with those APIs. Some things were documents, and they had, well, some things were, what do we call them before, entities. And some things were not. And the things that were entities had the same API and access patterns, and the things that weren't had just kind of whatever they wanted. Now that everything's documents and subdocuments, you can access, if it's a document, you can create it, update it, delete it, all via the same API. And that's really smoothed our ability to move forward. Cards are documents, and I would say it's gone a lot smoother now that, they can all be documents. They didn't have to be their own invented thing.
one from Discord real quick. Epsilon asks, will there be a 0810 in the near future to tide us over to stable 9, which still seems months away, addressing important bug fixes? Probably not is the answer. I don't think we have any bugs in 089 that are of enough impact and significance to warrant retasking the developers to work on bug fixes for that. Most of the bug fixes that we've been doing have been getting rolled into V9 instead, and I think that's probably the way we're going to go. That may change, but I think we'd have to hit a pretty significant bug for that to change. Currently, there are some inconveniences I recognize, but I don't think any of them are bad enough that we'd want to go back and hotfix something.
JDW's asking about cards, speaking of, clarifying our intent and scope of cards for V9. The big question is, are we planning cards on the canvas? I don't actually know.
I think it's something we'd like to do. I think Astro has commented it's something we'd like to do. I think there's an expectation. We've been working very closely with the League with regard to card support. That's League of Extraordinary Foundry Virtual Tabletop Developers. We've been working with them fairly closely with regard to card support. They submitted some pretty awesome proposal documents to us for things that they'd like to see included. And I think for the most part we've implemented a lot of what was in that document. Or at least the structure to support it. However, even from the outset, when they included it in the proposal, we told them it's not something where 100% is going to make the cut for this version, because it's not as simple as just add a layer that can handle cards.
So JDW's following up, should we wait for it or take the risk of it being scoped? I don't think we know, unfortunately. If you do add a way to draw cards on canvas with what's currently in the prototype, know that in the development phase it will likely change how the cards API works at least a bit. Know that we might add our own way and it might have been the ultimately wasted effort. But if you would like to work on that, I mean, I'm sure there will. I'm at the end of the day, I'm sure someone will have an alternate way to draw cards on canvas anyway. So, doesn't sound like the biggest waste, especially when we're not sure that we'll do it.
What I'll say is, if I were in your shoes and considering implementing a way to handle cards on canvas, I would probably wait until the middle, maybe closing on the end of version 9 development 1. Oh, we got word from the boss here. He suspects what is most likely is that the V9 core software will add support for dragging and dropping cards onto the canvas, which would become tiles. If we did that, there would be some way to hook into that workflow to override what happens as a result. I doubt we'll develop an entirely custom canvas object type for cards. I think that makes a lot of sense, and I hope that that clarifies things for you, JDW. I'd also like to just let you know that I remember your promise, and I will hold you to your promise from ages past, even if it was just an offhand statement that you made, because it was made on the internet, and therefore it is obviously engraved in stone that when cards become official, you would implement cards so nice. So let's make that happen, right?
You know, I think now's a great time to cut over to the system Nath has been working on, Farago, which has a card-based system. I've played in it before. It was a lot of fun. I don't know how much of that fun was the system itself or just Nath scaring me senselessly with the audio systems of Foundry. The last question I think we'll answer while we boot that up, Lala is asking, is there a cell on the horizon for Foundry? I have no clue. Nath?
If there is, it's too far away for us to make any declarations on it. I wouldn't expect anything in October. I won't say there will be one in November. There might be. There might be one over the holidays. Who knows? We're a ways out from that yet.
I'm going to cut over to the screen share quick now, where we are live connected to Farago, Nath's baby. Why don't you tell us, the audience, a bit about what you've been working on, Nath?
All right, so I've for a very long time I've been working on a tabletop role-playing game that uses cards as its basis. And I'm only really comfortable talking about it now because I actually have the copyright to it and you know all the legal documentation that says this idea is mine. And I've been working on it with my husband and also Cobalt, who you may recognize from the Foundry staff. And effectively, it uses. Each player has a hand of cards that is used for resolution mechanics in place of dice. In the distant future, I don't want to say anytime soon, I'm intending to release the system with a PDF and full integration for Foundry Virtual Tabletop. I've been working on the game system for over a year, just steady iteration, ripping it down, putting it back up, and I've learned a lot of JavaScript as a result. What you're seeing now is actually the current version of it, which is in development to use the new Cards API. For those who watched the stream yesterday, you already know that you can have a window system that you get access to with Patreon. We don't have a system that you get access to with Patreon, so I'm not entirely sure what you're referring to.
I think they're referring to a long time ago. Atro announced he was starting to work on a built for Foundry system. As far as I know,
Oh,
that's still in the
no,
works.
that is an entirely different project. Trust me, his will work way better than mine's gonna. Um, but yeah, no, his homebrew game system is his. This one's mine. So yeah, for those of you who watched the stream yesterday, you will have seen that you can have there in the cards menu. There's access to decks. Basically, you have a deck of cards, you have a hand of cards, and you can have a pile of cards. So if you want to, Cody, if you want to just click in the cards menu and just open the like Game Masters folder. Actually, it probably says no, sidebar menu. There's a folder for each user. This is something that I implemented in the system side that automatically generates a hand, deck, discard pile, and face down pile for every user. So the default Foundry interface just it shows you your deck. It's got the same interface for hands and piles, that kind of thing. That's all shared. But because my players, my users for this game, all have access to their own pile of face down cards, their own discard pile, and they all get one hand, what I did is I unified it into an application so that it actually renders the contents. So Cody, if you drag a card from the hand view into the discard view, you'll be able to see that it will actually transfer. It may not update the applications, but it will transfer the card. It does. Into the discarded cards pile. Likewise with face down, I'm not entirely sure what's going on with the UI on the face down on Cody's screen there. There's kind of a black blob there. This is obviously unpolished UI because I've been working with it mostly for the purposes of just making sure it works with the cards API. But effectively what it does is it's all unified into one simple hand application that a user can use. And that's opened by a button that I rammed into the interface next to the chat entry box, which can be just like clicked or click to open, click to close. Or I also took the time, thanks to one of our community helpers, Drentel, to implement a hotkey with Sunspot's keybind library so that if you press the H key, it will open or close your hand. In addition, this also uses the cards API to let you refill your hand to the maximum that your hand allows. In this case, as a game master, you get 5 cards, so if you click the refill hand button, it tops your hand up with the available cards. Likewise, if you flip a card, I think it'll actually post a chat, did it?
It did.
Yeah, so it'll actually post the top card flipped off your deck. Likewise, you can shuffle your deck from this, and it'll empty the cards out of your discard pile back in. Don't do that right now, Cody.
Whoops.
The play card dialogue is what I'm currently working on developing. It still needs some work.
This is not a black blob. It's hard to see because of the screen. That's actually the card back, which is just the Foundry D20, but embossed.
Yeah. So if he clicks shuffle deck right now, because of the rules of the system, all the cards in your discard pile are returned to the deck, and the deck is shuffled so you can draw cards again. However, it doesn't remove the cards from your hand because system mechanics require your hand not to allow you to return cards to the deck unless you've spent them for an action. So this is all powered by the new Cards API. Most of the functions that are working on this were converted over to the new Cards API in the last week, and I'm not. I'm not even an amateur coder. I spend most of my time screaming at Cody in DMs about not understanding some function of JavaScript, or why why it has to be phrased a certain way to get it to work. But the conversion to the new cards API it went incredibly well. It was really easy, super intuitive to read, and I'm really looking forward to how much power it's going to give. I've already shifted a lot of the functions that I had previously done and cut the code needed for it down by like 50%. The hack around methods I was using are just replaced by core API methods that just do exactly what I was hoping they would do.
And Nath, you were the one that made these card images, correct?
I was. I'm weirdly proud of them for how little time they actually took to create.
I am confused. The Joker card doesn't have my face on it.
Yeah, I actually mocked up a version of the cards where like the Foundry staff faces were on the face cards and the Jokers, and decided very quickly it would be a bad idea, so I deleted them. But yeah, the face cards, the card decks, they're made in Photoshop using a automated process to apply the letters and the numbers, the symbols and the numbers to each card. Takes about 20 minutes to run the process once you've got the card images designed. It was really good.
Irethnu and Twitch asks, what module is this? Looks really cool. This is core card support coming in V9. It actually just is available for exploratory testing in V9 Prototype 2. And the system is Nath's own creation, Farrago.
Yes.
The only thing that is custom developed here is, well, the generation of the various card stacks, and then this application that shows you your hand and piles.
Yep. And of course the button that lets you open it and close it quickly. It's the sepia toned kind of medieval ink looking window. That's wholly based on the Farrago system. It's still in progress. Hopefully I will be able to share details of it in the not too distant future. I've got an artist, fantastic artist, whose name I won't say because I don't want anyone to flood her with requests for art while she's working on art for my game. But fantastic artist working on art for the book. It's gonna look great when it releases. I've been working at it pretty steadily.
I'm excited to play again.
I'll be running one-shot tests for our community helpers and moderators in the not-too-distant future once I get card support worked out again.
Well, we have about 15 more minutes of scheduled time. We have hit the end of Twitch questions as far as... I'm sure I probably missed some by accident. We got one new Discord one. Robbie W. asked, will there be the implementation of more complex dice roll commands, such as... And he gives an example for rolling 3d6s 6 times. I don't think we have anything planned for V9 or V10 for expanding dice rolls. Let me swap us back to this view. Oh, is there anything else you want to show up while I'm in here? Yeah, see, that's multiplying.
Yeah. No. We can close that out.
Done.
Robbie W., I have never thought about... You just use dice pools is what you'd use to do that, really.
I
I'm gonna have to
yeah,
think about that question a bit.
if there is a something that you would like to do with dice that you can't currently do today, drop it in GitLab and we'll get it prioritized accordingly. Um, it's been a while since I think we've been asked to expand how dice work, though. We have, as far as I'm aware, like one of the most complex options for dice rolling.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I feel like there's probably ways that you could accomplish that with the existing system, but I may be wrong there. Dice are kind of a foreign object to me.
Let me check. Excuse me. It might be based on chat. Nope, I forgot. I write the software. I still, yeah, that's not something. All right. Excuse me. Oh, we missed one in Twitch and they repasted it. A while ago, someone asked and we talked about a specific 5e dev stream. 5e is a Foundry official product. It is something that Atro and Kim work on. I know the idea has been brought up in the past of doing dev streams dedicated to it. I think that's still on the table. I just think it hasn't happened yet. Largely, these streams do take a fair amount of time to run. I mean, we're obviously talking instead of developing right now. Also, it's a little more tiring than you would expect, like to just kind of be on for hours at a time. I don't know. We'll bring it back up.
I feel like, yeah, I feel like the last time it was mentioned was probably a month or so ago. And we've been head down on version 9 for pretty much that amount of time. So it's likely that the reason it hasn't happened is just it hasn't happened yet, rather than it's not going to.
And Boss is reporting in that possibly they'll do one when 1.5.0 of 5e goes live.
Yeah, true enough. I mean, the 1.4 releases have been like incremental, and while they're implementing new features, they're not like whole sweeping changes.
In general, we're glad you enjoy these streams that we run. That makes them worthwhile. After we want to round up the last 10 minutes with our filler questions then.
We can ask a few filler questions. Hit me.
Nath, I think a lot of people know this, but not everyone. You used to do bomb disposal. How did you get into that?
I applied for a job that was posted as survey assistant, and I was like, well, I can hold one of those poles that and stand at a distance while a surveyor works a theodolite. I can do that. That's not that big a deal. It'll be physically taxing. It'll be fine. And when I got to the interview, it was out in the middle of nowhere at this trailer. And I sat down for the interview and had a good chat. And about halfway through, the person conducting the interview asked, if we told you this job had to do with UXO, how would you feel about that? To which I responded, I don't know what that means. And they said, unexploded ordnance. And I said, so like bombs? Yes. And this is apparently the line that got me the job. I said, does your equipment work? And the interviewer said, yeah. I said, then I don't see a problem. If it's amusingly, it's one of the safest jobs I've ever had. The way they handled themselves, fantastic. You're working with military veterans who've got like 20 and 30 years experience, who are pretty much within arm's reach of you the whole time and will shove you out of the way if you're about to do something stupid. the safety guy, 35-year veteran, if I recall correctly, in munitions. Fantastic guy, put the crew ahead of everything, would stand aside and smoke and watch you work, and would not let you do anything that might potentially cause you harm, including failing to put on sunscreen before you walked out into the job site. Like, just really attentive. But yeah, I fell into it as the answer. Let's hit you with one. What's the weirdest job you've ever done?
See, the cop out would be this one, right? You know, because being able to be a on Twitch for part of my job is definitely. I never expected to be a Twitch streamer. You know, a lot of people aim for that, and this is just one of the parts of my job. I'm also part meme. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Weirdest previous job. I worked for a company that was producing its own smart thermostat. And I mean, it's already a weird project, right? To produce a new product that that is going to go on store shelves and people might buy. But this was this company's first foray into consumer devices versus business devices, and they didn't really know who they were selling to. And I think they kind of got stuck in we have this cool technology of a see-through touchscreen that can display your temperature, but we don't, it's very expensive. So like, all right, we're going to sell it to really rich people. Okay, fine. But really rich people might install it in their, remote cabins without internet. Okay, and therefore the day one experience can't have an update to make it better. We have to be feature complete release day. Ooh. So just decisions like that kept making the entire project like, we want to be able to schedule, if your temperature across midnight. Nope, the UX wasn't designed for it, and rich people don't want to change their temperature overnight anyway. But also, we have to support third shift workers too, we decided. That product did launch. You won't know anything about it because it never went anywhere. They failed to ever actually advertise it. You can buy it on Amazon. It's called the Glass Thermostat, GLAS. I was involved in that. I helped make the mobile app and some of the cloud stuff. I don't particularly recommend it, but you can buy it. That was my first real experience with. You can have all the cool software and technology in the world, and you can really bungle it just with poor decisions in management.
Yeah. I'm really glad to have the manager I have now. All right, got another one for me?
Oh boy. Sure do. You have a parrot that likes to scream murder. Why?
Well, Ben's parents, Ben being my husband, Ben's parents previously bred parrots, and when he was younger, he was given an African gray parrot, and the bird's the life of the party. Fantastic animal, hates my guts. This bird would actively murder me if given a chance.
Would you actively murder it given a chance?
No, I like him well enough, except when he's screaming. Not a big fan of that. But yeah, that's why.
All right.
What's the favorite module you've made?
Oh boy, so many of them. I'd be remiss not to talk about the module that led to Nath and I being friends. especially back when I first started working on Foundry modules, I was very excited to find something that just kind of worked and it let me do things. And that was exciting coming from, I had just spent like 2 weeks trying to get Roll20's API to do something pretty simple. I just wanted to see if an attack would hit, but you couldn't really know what the attack was targeting. So I just did output all 3 defenses as a chat card, and it worked terribly, and it was slow, and then the API docs were bad, and it didn't work the way I wanted, even after a lot of work. Whatever. Found Foundry, I was able to do in like 30 minutes. Awesome. And then I just kind of kept doing weirder and weirder stuff. And I don't remember if Nath dared me or if. I think maybe you did. I think Nath, like, I bet you can't make it run Doom or something like that. So I disappeared for a night. I came back, like, the next day. I'm like, I got it to run Doom. I got it to run Zork. Yeah, I think it started with Zork. And then it's like, well, you got to play Zork. What about Doom? Then I got to run Doom by running emulated DOSBox, running in WebAssembly and Foundry on the canvas. Did not work well. Foundry liked to consume all the inputs, so not all of them went to the game and such. You had to plug in your own startup code. It was slow, whatever. But it did run Doom and Zork and other DOSBox games. And then Nath came back to me like a week or two later. He's like, we're going to have to delist Zork. I'm like, my baby, you dared me to. How could you do this to me? He's like, we're pretty sure this is not in line with what we want Foundry to be for its modules. I'm like, you've never declined a module before. And they're like, yeah, we're pretty sure you're setting precedent here. And then like a month later, it's still up. I'm like, are you actually going to delist it? It's like, oh, we thought about it a bit more. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I should go delist that now. I'm thinking about it. It's still up today.
Still trying to decide today. Yeah, it's interesting because there were initially some concerns. I had some concerns about the like potential for copyright infringement, which is always something that we're looking out for. Whenever anything gets submitted, it's not enough. When it comes to intellectual property law, it's not enough to do the right thing. You have to be seen to try and do everything you actually can to prevent copyright infringement from even being possible if you're able to. So there were some concerns expressed about the fact that, you know, Doom was being run inside Foundry using this system with this emulator, and then on inspection, it turned out that Bethesda had just released the Doom source code open source. I don't know if they had just released it, but it had been released. And it was perfectly allowable under the license it was released under to do this. So we just kind of waffled on it back and forth for a while.
And so here it stands today. Was it a useful mod? No, it wasn't. It actually was a system. Do more people install it than I have any right? Yeah, I'm checking now. There have been nearly 500 people who have installed this system. Why? Who are you? Why do you want to play Zork in Foundry's chat box? Why do you want to play Doom on Foundry? None of these are good experiences. I guess technically it is the only way to play multiplayer Zork, since you all share the same chat box and it uses the same save state.
God, I never thought about that.
Stop.
Should Twitch stream the Foundry staff playing Zork communally.
Speaking of Doom, we are going to be playing Doom Eternal as a Foundry staff later today. We're not streaming that.
Absolutely not streaming us playing Doom Eternal. All I can say is Atropos finished it in record time, cleared the DLC in record time.
Wait, I haven't even done the DLC yet.
And I'm not looking forward to what he's going to do to us with a super shotgun in multiplayer.
Let's team up, Nath. You know, We should be one of those companies that we set goals like, if we get this many patrons, we'll do Zork multiplayer stream. Probably not though.
I don't know if we could talk the boss into that. That may not fly. Anyway, we're approaching our 2-hour line, so if you have any last minute urgent questions that you want to ask us, now is the time. I'm just going to refresh Reddit here real quick.
I often use the Doom Eternal soundtrack as programming music soundtrack. I specifically have a YouTube playlist one that remixed it as a workout playlist, and they throw in like the audio logs of like, I now believe him to be a god, and it's really well mixed. And it's such a good thing to program too.
That's funny because my programming playlist alternates between really bad folk punk like Misanthropic Drunken Loner by Days and Days, and an overabundant amount of the Fat Rat and Laura Brim. It's just a hot swap back and forth.
I feel like this reflects in your code.
Yeah, it probably does. If it's written well, it was Laura Brim and the Fat Rat, and if it was written to work, but not cleanly, it was definitely the folk punk.
All right, everyone. It's been a pleasure. Nath, did you find any further questions?
Nope. It looks like we are all clear, and we've answered everything that everyone has asked. I think we can sign off and go get ready to get our asses absolutely handed to us in Doom.
Oh, what difficulty did he play on? Didn't he play on a harder one too?
He picked on the one. He picked the one I picked.
Yeah, see, I picked one lower than you guys, and it still was hard.
I greatly regret picking this difficulty. Yeah, that's the one that he did it on.
Oh, we're in trouble, aren't we?
Probably. Anyway,
all right,
everyone,
have a good one, everyone.
We'll see you all next month.